Hello again, everybody. This is Scott Moore, and you're watching the SMC Journal podcast, where it's all about performance in IT today. We're all about making software and hardware the most efficient that it can be, running the best that it can be, being all that it can be. So, in today's show, I'm going to introduce you to a company that you may have never heard of before. I know I had never heard of this company until a friend of mine changed jobs and began working for the company, and I saw the description and there was the word observability. Ding, ding, ding. I got to check them out. Why have I not heard of this company before? So, the company is called CRIBL. Have you heard of them before? Maybe I'm the last one to the party. CRIBL makes two main products. The first product is called LogStream. So think of metrics, logs, and traces and observability. What if I don't want to send my logs to one particular platform that I'm on? Maybe I'm on several, or maybe I've got a homegrown solution. It enables you to direct your logs wherever you want to send them. There's also this product called AppScope, which I'm interested in talking about today. So AppScope is a way to get the telemetry out of any Unix, Linux executable, and so it's black box instrumentation. There's no agent, there's nothing. You set a command line argument and you run that Linux binary with this command line, and it basically hooks into the app, sends that to the logs, which then allows you to send logs wherever you want. Now, why is this important? I'll be honest with you. When I talk about observability platforms with people that have been on them for a little bit of time, there's a couple of, well, there's always a monkey wrench. There's always some kind of a hitch, right? And the biggest hitches that I'm hearing about observability today is vendor login, because it's kind of hard to start moving away from just traditional APM and get on an observability platform. This is the feedback I'm getting. Okay, you may have a different experience, but it's hard to get everything set up. It's a process, and once you get on that, it's difficult to switch to some other platform and switch the process. It's a lot of work involved. And then the second biggest thing is, there's a lot of data. You have to really tune it to know what you're getting, because if you just monitor everything all the time, the cloud bills do get very high. So a lot of people have decided we only want to gather exactly what we need. We'll filter out all of the noise, and then eventually they continue filtering, and they keep seeing the price go down, go down, go down, and eventually they're only monitoring 10 or 20% of things in their enterprise, and some of that other stuff really does need to be monitored, but they just don't have the money to do it. And this is where CRIBL and their LogStream and AppScope applications try to help reduce that cost so that you can monitor more stuff and still lower the cost. Now, how is that possible? I'm going to ask the company about that. But before I do, let's just look a little bit about more information about CRIBL, because just like you, I want to find out when I hear about a company. I do what you do. I do some searches on the internet and I find out about them. And of course, Crunchbase talks about they started in 2017. They've gotten at least 3 rounds of funding. They're in Series C right now. It looks like they have, somewhere between 100 and 200 employees. They seem to be doing very well in terms of market announcements and press releases. It's been very positive. Last year, they got a series of $200 million in funding, which raised their valuation to, I think, $1.5 billion is what I'm seeing down there. Yep. And there's also been some really good press on them about how they've had record-breaking growth. They basically tripled their client base. Now, I don't know if we dig in here, would we see they went from 1 customer to 3 customers, and that's 300%. I'm sure it's a lot better than that. I'll let the company address that. But it does say that they have 10 of the Fortune 50 companies that have signed up with them. So there are some very large companies who know who CRIBL, about CRIBL and what they do, and recognize the value. They also were voted as one of the top 100 coolest cloud companies to work for in 2022. So obviously, I'm kind of, I guess, a little bit late to this. That brings me to this last article, and all of this stuff will be shared on my show notes, whereas this article in Datanami from early February talks about how this observability data, as the amount of information grows, they're seeing data rates of 10 to 100 terabytes of more in space. I'm not kidding here. So Gartner and a lot of these other analysts are saying, wait, hold on a second. I mean, 10 terabytes is, we got to figure out a way to reduce this. But also at the same time, we want to see what we need to see, but we also have to control the cost of that. So of course, I saw this and I'm like, hold on a second. I got some questions. How are you telling me that? Because you look on the website, you'll see this video where they say 80% of the stuff is not monitored, only 20% is. We can help you get that 80% back that you're missing, but also, you know, the cloud bill is a lot of data. Cloud bill is high because of your gathering a lot of data. So they're increasing the data. They're just shifting the logs somewhere else. But we'll get into all that. So I had these questions. So I decided to reach out to the company. They responded very quickly and said, we'd love to talk to you about this. And so I had an interview with their CTO who's going to answer these questions. And I want to share this interview with you now. Hello, I'm with Lydia and Batinka of CRIBL. Welcome to the SMC Journal podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Happy to be here.
Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and a little bit about CRIBL, what you do there?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Lydia Batinka, co-founder and CTO of CRIBL. And here at CRIBL, we are an observability pipeline. And that, I know that's a mouthful, but we basically give customers choice when it comes to their observability data. A lot of companies are seeing the value of machine data and making sure that their systems are operational or the systems are secure. However, we believe that the solutions today in the market lock people into vendor-specific solutions, and we believe that there's different tools that customers can use for different to solve their different challenges and different problems. And we want to give them choice to send the data wherever it needs to, wherever it's best for them.
You know, I recently stumbled across your website, and I know that AppScope isn't your main product. You have a logging product, which I want you to mention and talk about. But of course, me being the performance engineer that I am, I see observability, and I'm always thinking about performance. But I saw AppScope out there, and there was a blog article, and it talks about the history of like how you came up with AppScope. It was a hole that you needed to fill because of the other product. Can you just highlight that? Because I'm going to direct people to that blog, and I'll share the links on the show notes. But can you just briefly share that, because I thought it was an interesting story.
Sure. Yeah. So absolutely. AppScope was actually one of the original ideas that we started working on when we right before working on LogStream, our currently main product. And we saw a gap in trying to understand or trying to get some instrumentation data out of applications. And it was painful to get some of this data in a uniform way, where you have a large distributed application. You could be having parts of the application that are written in Java, part of it are written in C, C++, parts of it maybe in Perl, part of it Python, what have you. And kind of getting uniform observability across all of them, or uniform data about what these applications were doing was very hard. So we thought of this way of, hey, what if we can insert ourselves between the application and the operating system that it's interacting with, and try to understand its behavior from that perspective. What files is the application opening? What, how much CPU, how much RAM? What network calls are coming in? What network calls it's making? What DNS requests it's making out, and what is it trying to resolve? Obviously, that generates a ton more data. So when we took that out to market, a lot of customers said, or a lot of prospects at the time said, "Hey, well, great, we've generated a ton of metrics and a ton of logs. What am I going to do with them? I'm already up to the brim on with data." And that's how the original idea, the idea of LogStream came about. And so now we're kind of back into the AppScope world and giving people the ability to extract application instrumentation data and hopefully pre-process that with LogStream and then send it over to systems where they can analyze and get insights out of the applications.
So when I go to CRIBL's website, the thing that I kept seeing over and over was reduction of cost because cloud bills are expensive. Then I watched the video, and it was cool because it was saying, look, you've got these observability platforms. When everybody talks about observability, everybody's talking about the platforms. And then you think about how much data it is. Then you think about the cost of gathering all this stuff. So the video talks about 80% of this stuff really isn't being monitored because it is so expensive. And so you're saying, let's fill in that gap and give that other 80%. But now I'm wondering, okay, how does that reduce the cost if I'm increasing the data and I'm getting more data? How is that saving me money?
Problem number one to be solved with observability is not necessarily just the cost stuff, is, how much value are you getting out of observing that system? Are you getting the right data to actually get to the root cause of a particular problem? And at times you may be ingesting junk into your analytics system, of no value to reduce that MTTR. So what we, in combining AppScope, giving you the ability to get instrumentation data out of more applications, combining that with LogStream, which gives you the ability to process the data before deciding where it goes. So for example, you could be, if you're generating a ton of metrics, you could decide to aggregate some of those metrics, or you could decide to drop some of the logs that are irrelevant, or maybe even buffer them for a short period of time, and maybe release that buffer whenever a signal comes. So for example, if you see the latency starting to go up, maybe that's the time when you kind of let the debug messages go through, so you can help developers or SRE troubleshoot, understand, hey, what is actually going on.
So I see. So basically, you're a giant filter, and then if something is triggered, like a rule set is triggered, CPU spikes to 100% for more than 5 minutes, and all of a sudden we want to see more data, but then you don't always want to see that much data. So that's great. It seems to me that the big secret sauce is how you're hooking into these Linux applications, because you're saying that any Linux app, any binary, you need no agent, you need nothing, you just, there's an easy way to hook into it, and then you get this information, so there's not a whole lot of, I guess, setup or programming around it. Can you talk a little bit how that works?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So the way that works is, there's actually two types of applications that exist out there, as you kind of get into the nitty-gritty details. We have a set of applications that are known as dynamically linked applications, or you have statically linked applications. And we use different techniques to instrument both of these applications. For dynamically linked applications, we effectively preload our library. So you could think of, you have the operating system, and then you have the application that's sitting on top of it. We insert ourselves between the application and the operating system, so we intercept and we get to see all the system calls that are being made, as well as any application. We may intercept a few interesting methods that are being called internally. So for example, we interpose things like OpenSSL, so we can understand, we can look at the data before it's being encrypted and after it's being decrypted. So you can look at HTTP traffic, for example, and then kind of extract the headers and whatnot. So this is for the dynamic applications. For the static applications, we use what's called a slightly different technique, but effectively in the same way. But instead of leaving the operating system load the application, we have written our own loader. So you simply just put in scope and the rest of the command, and we would execute the application as if the operating system ran it. But we hook into these specific places, just like in the dynamically loaded application.
And the type of information that you can reveal, and I'm just thinking about performance myself, that would be anything that has to do with infrastructure, like CPU, memory utilization, and these are of the applications themselves, right? Is there? Can you talk about just briefly about like what other kinds of things from a performance standpoint I might want to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could be looking at how much I/O, for example, is an application doing, right? So how are the file system operations performing? Are there, is the application opening specific files over and over again? Is it doing a ton of stats? Is it doing a ton of read-write operations? How are the network operations performing? Is it like, even when writing to files, is it writing in small chunks, or is it writing in large chunks? Is it reusing HTTP connections, or is it not reusing HTTP connections, right? In many cases, performance is not just about like, hey, how much CPU or how much memory you're using, but it's also like whether you are using those things efficiently. Like recently, for example, we troubleshot LogStream in using our main product, using AppScope, to figure out that, hey, one of the AWS SDK options that we're using by default, we had not set connection reuse to true. For some reason, the SDK does not reuse HTTP connections, and you could see a ton of latency in some of the requests, even though CPU and memory and network were just fine.
It sounds really easy to use, and it sounds like you're helping people to make a decision about observability platforms and not being so locked into them as well, which I think is a big deal. Or maybe then you could create your own and use Logstream and AppScope. Can you tell us just a little bit about the plans for what where are you going to be taking this, and sort of a preview of your roadmap? Can you share anything along those lines?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think we just released a product last week called Edge, which sort of sits in between, if you were to think about Logstream and AppScope, which acts as you could think of as an intelligent agent that's going to be sitting on those on the nodes where the applications are running. Sometimes when you're trying to troubleshoot applications, you're not only interested in what the application is doing, but also what else is going on in the system while the application is doing what it's doing. So, you'd get with Edge, you'd get a view of what the system is doing. You'd also get a view, AppScope is going to be connecting, or is going to be having a native integration with CRIBL Edge to kind of get a view of get a fuller view of the information that's needed to troubleshoot that application. So the short-term roadmap is giving users the ability to interact with these scoped applications. So you could dynamically vary, for example, the verbosity of data, or how frequently are we the granularity of metrics that we're collecting, right? So this is from the data collection piece. And then as we go into the data analytics piece, we're planning to add more visibility into more analytics capabilities, both on Edge, again, which is the intelligent agent, but also on Logstream and any further products, to kind of give you more intelligence get more insight out of the data that's going through. So some of the spikes and some of the CPU spikes, for example, if you wanted to, or alerts where you can go back and kind of release some of the data that is collected at the AppScope level.
Any plans to extend this into the Windows world?
That is one of the great questions that we get asked about, especially about Edge. Edge just got released, and we're already getting a ton of questions. We are definitely we have multi-platform support towards end of year in the roadmap. It's going to be a little bit challenging, but we believe we can certainly do it for both Edge and AppScope. I'm not sure if we're going to be going with all our products, but definitely for the products that interact with those applications, we definitely should do it.
And last question, I did notice that your metrics support HTTP 1.1, and I wanted to find out about H2 and H3. And the reason why, I just did an interview with Robin Marks earlier in the week about HTTP version 3, and I'm thinking, we just started talking about HTTP version 2 a couple of years ago, and everybody's talking about H3 and quick and all this stuff. So how are you going to keep up with that?
Yeah, so in AppScope went also live. AppScope 1.0 went live with support for HTTP2 as well. We had partial support before that, so some of the blog posts that you would have seen, they would probably have been for 0.8 or 0.81, where we had an early support for HTTP2. Now we have in 1.0, we do have support for HTTP2 and all the encodings and all the fun stuff that it comes with. H3 we have not started, but I'm sure as excitement gets hyped up, we'll definitely need to look into it.
I kind of wouldn't expect you to do that. I think that's still sort of in the experimental stage, and it's also built on top of UDP, so you're getting rid of TCP altogether. So that's a whole different ballgame, if you ask me.
Well, we'll look into it and see, kind of check all the funds. Like the building AppScope has been an absolute fun to look at the team and how they've been building. Kind of running one challenge after another with, looking into how Go does stuff or how Java does stuff, and even these different protocols, whether it's HTTP or Mongo or Redis that we recognize out of the box. So I would not put it past them to kind of take on the fun challenge of H3.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for being on the SMC Journal podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Scott.
So you heard Leon. There's some plans to extend this product. I want to share a couple more print screens with you from the website and the actual application itself. Just digging in just a little bit more. This particular graphic here, I'm interested in showing you because they talk about their LiveScope and kind of like their DLL, their dynamic links there. And as you can see, you've got sort of these applications that they're hooking into, and look what this talks about. Is grabbing file system information, CPU information, process information, network information, and other types of, I guess, data points, putting them in memory, and then periodically, based on the scope that you set, it sends it into the statsd or this particular JSON format, and then outputs them through UDP, TCP, or through the file system. So that's at a high level how this thing works. You heard how it was described. This is just a print screen of what their command line interface looks like when you use it, which has actually got some pretty cool graphics on it, where you can see a lot of kind of information you might see out of Top or some of these other applications that support metrics. But this is what's going on with those particular Linux executables themselves. Here's an example of them troubleshooting where DNS requests were taking a lot longer, and there were some spikes there, and they made a change for their number of reusing connections that they were reusing, and you see that the number of DNS requests was reduced, the DNS request time. And then I know it's kind of hard to see this, but this is some of the log information that comes out of Linux executables that is then formatted and then put into something that supports more of a platform, if you will. So what do you think? And this, to me, this kind of would help fit into a customer profile where they are dealing with either which observability platform they want to standardize on. Maybe they got multiple platforms. Maybe they have multiple areas and they're just so large. They just need to get a central source of information for their logs and where they want to send them out to. And then also figure out ways that they can kind of tune down when they want to see less information, when they want to see more information. So what do you think? I would like to know your thoughts on this. You can always reach me at scottmoore.consulting, and I've got my LinkedIn profile and Twitter handle there for you to check out. You can also email me at help@scottmoore.consulting. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel yet? We're getting so close to 1,000 users, and I want to give away something really cool. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you could. Our show would not be possible without the sponsorship that we receive. And if you like this kind of content, please support our sponsors. And that includes my friends at Micro Focus, makers of LoadRunner solutions. Performance really matters to them. Did you know that LoadRunner Solutions has the largest community of practitioners as part of it? You can check out more at community.microfocus.com. We have a QR code that you can check out their Performance Engineering LoadRunner family page. There's also a playlist on YouTube that talks about performance engineering and the way that the Micro Focus LoadRunner products address performance engineering needs. This podcast is also sponsored by Keysight Technologies, maker of Eggplant Performance. Eggplant Performance supports web, Citrix, and low-level protocols that run on TCP/IP, and they can meet your application performance testing needs, complete with real-time monitoring and integrated test results analysis. So make sure you click on the links that we provide in our show notes or that QR code. We are also sponsored, this particular podcast is sponsored by supervisor.com. Stop having slow websites. Stop losing money because of a slow website. Supervisor.com will allow you to continuously track the performance of your code or your hosting provider. Predict your site load speed with higher user volumes with a one-click testing solution. Find out more at supervisor.com. Well, that's today's show. I'm Scott Moore for the SMC Journal podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.